went live, but I'm going to take a quick bite of my food before we actually start going for it.
Okay.
Give it a few minutes to pop up.
I'm gonna share it to my Discord.
We'll see if I can somehow take bites in between talking, but I don't think that's going to happen.
I can yap if you want. Might be about nothing and might make no sense, but I can yap.
We'll see. I'm not too fussed about it.
And then I'm also going to share it in our Discord.
Yeah, I did put a message in there earlier today, but I guess it would be good to say when we actually go live. Perfect.
And the single viewer is me. Because I'm watching it on my account.
I thought I was logged in. Uh-oh.
Oh?
I was going to try to look at the chat through Meld, like the streaming thing. 909. Ah! Oh, heck yeah, there it is. All right, cool. I got the chat up too.
Okay, wait, hang on. I don't remember. I am way louder than you in stream.
Okay.
Just so you know. Also, hi, Blemish.
Hey, Blemish. Okay, I think I fixed it.
Okay.
Wait, try talking again so I can see.
Hello. Hello.
That's close enough.
It's better.
It is better.
So they're talking about adding No, I haven't. I didn't bring up the Titanic flute music. They were mad that they couldn't use it on the last stream when I was playing Valorant because it's on my channel.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
they can redeem channel points for the Titanic flute, but I don't think we can do it yet because we don't have channel points on this account yet.
Yeah, no.
So if you want us to add Titanic flute, you have to get us to affiliate.
Right. Once we get more followers, then we can add fun stuff in like that. Once that's done, then we're good to go. I actually was going to do that. There you go, Blemish. You're our first mod. Alright. That's enough lollygagging.
Sick.
I'm going to also quickly copy the Discord link, since I'll send that once we talk about it. That's
Love to hear it. I love to hear it. I love that that's your motivation.
whatever gets the promotion going. I don't care.
Exactly. Free promo, I'll take it.
Exactly. Perfect. All right, let's get started so we can do a tight version of this, since there's not still too much to talk about.
Yeah.
I need to pull up my intro. All right, perfect. Well, hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Plant the Spike, a Valorant podcast focused specifically on the VCT Americas region and other North American Valorant, like Game Changers, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight. My name is Lance, and I'm joined by my 4K co-host Styx. Styx, how are you doing tonight?
I am doing so well. We had a lot of fun last week. I don't know that you should have trusted me to run the podcast by myself, but we had a good time. I will tell you that.
Sometimes it's going to happen, and I have to trust that you'll do right by us and by the viewers and just have insane games like, drop a 4K every once in a while.
Yeah. We did spend, I want to say, a good 10 minutes talking about how hot some of the Valorant agents are, so I really don't think you should have trusted that.
I haven't seen that part of the VOD yet, so we'll hopefully it'll be lost to the annexes of time, or annals of time rather, and we'll never have to hear about that conversation again.
It was good, I promise.
I'm sure it was something.
Blemish.
Um,
Blemish is turning on me now.
Blemish is in our chat, and if you want to be in our chat, you should join us when we're talking about all of this stuff live. We talk every Tuesday at 7 p.m. We're actually a little bit late tonight. I had something going on, but 7 p.m. Pacific time is our normal start time. And this show specifically is a call-in show where you, as the viewer, can call in to talk about any hot takes you may have about American Valorant. All you have to do is join our Discord, which is going to be linked in the YouTube channel description and in the Twitch chat right now. You can go ahead and join in that. And I've also pinned it for. I'll just unpin it at the end of the stream. Perfect. So definitely make sure you join our Discord. Make sure you join our Twitch. I just linked our Twitch inside of our Twitch, so that didn't actually do what I wanted it to do. But hey, it's only episode 6. We're still learning how to do things. As we continue to go along, we hope to get some more in-depth conversation with you guys. We want to get the community more involved in actually talking about hot takes that people have on their mind. So that's kind of our thoughts. Also, apparently, we need to get up to affiliate so that we can add in things like the Titanic flute music, whatever it takes.
It's a must, honestly. According to the chat last week, it's a must because they're used to my stream where they play Titanic flute at the most inopportune times.
Right.
And so they really just want to mess us up with what's going on here.
For sure, yes. That could definitely happen, and that would absolutely happen if they were to play that during our chats. But that is definitely something that we want to have happen because if we get more people, we could do stupid things like that and begin to talk with more and more of you guys in the community. So, anyways, join us live Tuesdays at 7 p.m. This week, we are still not quite to Toronto, so we're going to just kind of talk about some of the stuff that's coming up here. Talk about some of the roster moves that have happened in the Americas region. We'll talk about some of the game changers, like we said at the beginning, and we'll kind of make sure that we've got everything prepped and set up for us before we go to Toronto. That will be happening next Saturday, so not the 31st, but the 7th of June. We got that schedule all released and sorted out as well. So, looking forward to all of that. Before we jump into anything specifically, Styx, is there anywhere that you want to start? Anything that you want to start talking about?
Shopify Rebellion Gold are my queens, and I love them.
Let's do it. Let's get into game changers. For those of us that might not be following game changers as closely, walk us through kind of what's going on right now and where we're at.
So Game Changers, they are nearing the end of their stage 1. So just this last week, we had a game between for upper semifinals and then the lower round 2. So we had Shopify Rebellion Gold played YFP. They won in 2-0, which expected because Shopify, they're still unbeaten this season, which is insane. These are the same, well, it's not the same exact roster, but this is the same team that has won back-to-back champions.
Right.
And so they look like they're on track to do it again, which would be insane. But then you also saw Wadada play Aussie and Friends. They also won 2-0 in the upper semifinal. So now in the upper final, it's going to be Shopify and Wadada. But both of them are qualified to, I don't know where they're playing next, actually, the next event. But anyways, they're qualified to the international.
Gotcha. So they're automatically qualified. Is it like the VCT where the top 3 teams from the bracket get automatically qualified for the next step?
I want to say that's the case. I admittedly have not been watching Game Changers that much,
Okay.
or as long as I have been VCT, so I'm still a little bit unfamiliar with their format. But I do believe that is the case, unless it is only the top team, but I don't think that's the case.
Right.
But yeah, so then we saw Aussie and Friends play Catface. They won 2-1. And then YFP played Ghost Gaming and lost 2-0 in the lower round. So now we're looking to the upper final, which is going to be Shopify versus Wadada, which we were just talking before stream. Wadada has, who was it? Starbound, who was on FlyQuest before, and FlyQuest was really good. So I'm looking forward to seeing that because Starbound is insane. But also, I mean, Shopify has their team, which their roster is stacked.
They've kind of got
Like
the
genuinely
hitters.
stacked. Yeah, they have Mel, who is one of the best IGLs I think I've ever seen. Dodonut, who is just incredible. Her mechanics are insane. Alexis, who is a very good initiator. Noya, who is one of the best sentinels in the game. And Sarah, who is just so, like, all of these girls are so mechanically gifted that I am so excited to see them play because they've been doing well in all of like the different series they're playing in. Like I said, Game Changers undefeated. But I mean in Challengers even their Ascension and Challengers maybe? Yeah, so they're not undefeated in those, but they're still doing really well, which when you consider the fact that they're not necessarily the same experience as those teams, or I guess different experience you would say.
Right.
But it's still very impressive. Like they're just stacked right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, anytime you watch a Shopify Rebellion game, especially in the game changer scene, it just seems like you're watching a team that is so dialed in that they know like what they have everything drilled out. Like they look just like the most well-oiled machine you've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um,
They're so practiced.
yeah, and it helps that they have been playing together for so long. I mean, even the shift from Floor to Dodo, and then has Sarah been on the team this whole time?
Yeah, Sarah's been on the team I think pretty much since its inception. I want to say that's the case. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at her team history now. She joined Shopify Rebellion in 2023.
Okay.
So I think, well, now I'm double checking myself. I think they've all been with Shopify since 2023, except Dodo.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean that my whole point with that is like we see this in VCT as well, that oftentimes the teams who have just can have continual success rather, are these teams that are able to continuously iterate with their teams and the things that they're doing. When they're able to constantly go through and find new ways to innovate with the same team, you eliminate that need for the communication to have to rebuild, the trust to have to rebuild, and when that is the case, they're able to actually go through and like continue to dominate as long as we've seen Shopify Rebellion go. It's the same thing like with what we're seeing with G2 in the VCT Americas, and we see this with other teams all around the world. Fnatic has for the most part had the same team, same core, and they're top of the EMEA, and so on and so forth. And so it's this tried and true method that it makes sense that it would work. And for a system like Game Changers that kind of really relies on that consistency, this is kind of going to be why, or that's one of the reasons why this team is as strong as they have been for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going back to Dodo Nut, filling in that slot that Floor left when she left the team. Dodo Nut slotted in so well to Shopify. Like I was worried there would be like some bumps in the road. Like they wouldn't, like obviously they wouldn't do as well as they are.
Sure.
But it's still like I don't know. It's incredible to watch what they're doing because they've made history this year not only as the first Game Changers team to get into Challengers, but now they're going undefeated in Game Changers, which we've always known. Like we were talking about it, not last podcast, but one before.
Yeah.
We've always known they're good.
Right.
Like that is not up for negotiation. They are a phenomenal team. Like I said, I firmly hold the belief that they are good enough for a tier 1 slot.
Totally.
Um I don't know when that'll happen / if it'll happen, but I think that that is possible, and I think they would succeed in tier 1 is the better part of that.
Yeah, exactly. I think that they would too, and I think that there's different differences in how the region or how the systems would play. Going from game changers to VCT would be a
Yeah.
little bit more regimented. Would probably not be as fast paced as we see in like challengers and game changers and
Mhm.
things like that. And the competition would be consistently top of the line rather than in game changers. What seems to happen a lot of times, and this is actually same for challengers as well. You really aren't playing the best of the best every single week. What typically
Right.
happens is like game changers, for example, you have to wait until you get to that international event.
Yeah.
Or challengers, for example, you have to wait until you get either into the late stages of playoffs or as you're fighting for ascension with the other teams around the region. So it'll be interesting to see, what happens. I think that game against Wadada is going to be really good.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Excuse me.
I
Because
think Wadada is the only team Shopify hasn't won 2-0 against. When I was looking at their stats, I think Wadada is the only one that took a map off of them.
yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, I think that when it comes to the game changer scene, that's kind of what you want to see is if you're gonna have teams dominating, you want them to dominate all the time, and then that way, once they get their chance against these other teams, like Shopify Rebellion is getting in challengers,
Yeah.
um, it just gives them that much more either confidence or um, whatever it may be. Confidence is probably the right word that they actually can do what they know they can do, and they don't really they treat every game like they can win it, and I think that is Shopify's biggest superpower right now is just the confidence. They're on this winning streak. They probably feel as good as they ever have, if not pretty close to as good as they ever had. um and now it's just time to finish it out, right?
Yeah.
It's not about getting cocky. It's just we know that we can win, so that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah, and I think as well, the thing is, the match against YFP, because I was watching it when it was happening, I think I was texting you while I was watching. The games weren't like a blowout. Ascent went 13-11, Sunset went 13-9. And it actually Shopify had a rough start to Ascent. YFP took, I want to say, uh like 3 rounds in a row off of
Hmm.
them. And then right at the end, Shopify is on match point and YFP takes 4 rounds in a row off of them.
Yeah.
And so it's like it's one of those things that YFP, they're no slouches. Like they are a good team. Obviously they made it this far, so they're halfway decent at least. But then
Totally.
like when you actually watch the game, like you see it really was a fairly close game. Sunset was a little bit more eh.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, they ended up at the half, it was 7-5 in Shopify's favor. So I mean, again, like it wasn't a bad game by any means,
Right.
but wasn't quite as close as Ascent. But yeah, but I think I think it'll be a good end to the series for sure,
Yeah.
regardless of who wins this next game against between Shopify and Wadada.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think that this is going to be that this is totally going to be the game that um, solidifies for them, that they can make it all the way to Japan without having to really make put in too much effort or sweat too
Yeah.
much. So it'll be really cool to see.
Yeah. And then, sorry, this isn't like related to current teams that are still in Game Changers, but I totally forgot until literally today. Kaide, she made a Game Changers team and they made it to playoffs in their first season, which is not an easy thing to do.
No, totally. Which team is hers actually? I didn't know about this.
It's TV.
TV. Okay. Yeah,
So,
that's sick.
because I think they're all Twitch streamers, I want to say.
Okay.
I think because their tag is TTV.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I don't know if it's just because Kaide is a streamer or if they're all streamers. But yeah, but I thought that was like pretty insane because again, first season in Game Changers and they make it all the way to playoffs. Like that is not an easy thing to do, especially since most of these teams have been in Game Changers for a little bit at least.
Oh
Like
yeah.
it's for most of them I don't think it's their first season.
No, totally. No, that's awesome. Yeah. I think that the game changer scene is something that people are starting to pay a lot more attention to. It helps when you
Mhm.
have a big gap like this in between the VCT season, where VCT Americas, for example, finished like 3 weeks ago at this point, 2 weeks ago,
It feels
and
like years.
it feels like forever. And now we're finally getting closer to that. But in the meantime, we've had challengers to watch if you were really hungering for some Valorant. You also had game changers now, which is probably higher level in some ways than challengers.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I mean we can get into the variety of reasons for that, but I think that it's cool to see so many people kind of paying a little bit more attention to that scene, and it helps like when teams like Shopify Rebellion go over to challengers, that they're able to kind of be the ambassador for that, whether they want to be or not. It's just good for the scene all around.
Yeah, and I think this isn't, in my opinion, this isn't a hot take, but if you're not watching any sort of tier 2 Valorant or Game Changers Valorant, you are missing out. Like, there is some really insane matches that happen there. And it's because it feels a lot more like watching just like a Twitch streamer, in my opinion, obviously, because they aren't as regimented as, your tier 1 teams are, but they are just as fun to watch. Like there are still some
Mm,
crazy moments that happen, and we've talked about it before.
hmm.
Some tier 1 teams take ideas from the tier 2 teams to implement in their strategies.
Right.
And so I think if you're not at least paying attention to some of those matches, you are totally missing out on an entire different world of Valorant. It's very fun to watch.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of good coming out of the scene, and a lot of things to keep an eye out. It helps as well for when we get to points like this in the season, and people are making roster moves, and all of a sudden random people are coming in, like Scuba to NRG. And if you've been watching
Yeah,
if you've been watching Challengers, then you know that Scuba's cracked out of his mind and has been
he's
kind of
insane.
carrying Cubert. Um, so that's something cool as well. Um, Speaking of people coming out of challengers and people making roster moves, I think that if we just kind of touch on some of the stuff coming up here for some of the changes that have happened,
Mhm.
the last time that we talked 2 weeks ago was when Energy added Scuba to the roster and FNS had retired finally. And when I say finally, I guess it's more like we finally found out and he told us that he was retiring. We kind of
We've known
all
it was happening.
Well, yeah, he had kind of hinted at it that it was going to happen and things like that, so we knew that something was coming with it.
Yeah.
um and so since then, quite a lot of things have been going on, and we knew that, for example, like Leviathan was dropping some players, but we weren't really sure who was going to be able to fill those roles. Well, now we know. We could jump into Leviathan here really quick. They filled out their roster all the way. So King, Tex, and Com stuck around, and they've added in two more players named Okeanos and Sato. They are replacing Demon One and Rossi after they were both dropped for a poor performance in stage one. Both of
Yeah,
these players,
Sato is
mhm,
good. I like him.
yes, yeah, it's pretty. It's bittersweet that they're coming in. They both are coming from the M80 team in Challengers, and
Yeah.
M80, as they announced earlier on, unfortunately has decided to completely withdraw from the Challengers. What am I trying to say? Challengers competition, and they've had to they've withdrawn, and the three that remained off of this team essentially rebranded under a different name and are now continuing to go forward for that. My whole point with that is that you know they kind of came. It seems like they might have come because they knew that that was happening. At the same time, regardless, they're great players. You said that
Yeah.
Sato's a demon, and I'm assuming that Okeanos can only be similar if
Yeah,
he's
no,
coming with them.
they're both pretty insane. And I think as well the fact that they were already teammates, that is going to be really good for Leviathan to have two players that are already really good at playing together.
Hmm.
Um and just kind of up the chemistry of the team.
Totally. When you think of these two players coming in, and yeah, they're from the same team. They're coming into the a team that honestly had a lot of. They did have some success near the end, and they had a lot of uh, potential, but they just kind
Mhm.
of weren't able to push it over the finish line. Do you think that adding these two players is going to help them, and when I say them, help Leviathan have a better shot at making it to either playoffs and potentially all the way, deep into playoffs to potentially make it to champs in Paris? Is this the move that they needed?
I think they'll be able to make it to playoffs. I mean, Sato, he is a Yoru demon. He I'm looking at his stats right now. He has picked Yoru 12 times out of, like Jet, Rays, all of them. Like he's picked Yoru the most.
Hmm.
And he's good on Yoru. Like his average ACS is 287. Like I mean, I
He's making
think with
moves.
him, yeah, with him alone, like he'll have a lot more firepower as on the team um than Demon 1 did.
Hmm.
But then again, do we know Keen is still going to play controller then probably, right? That's be safe to assume because I know he's played duelist a couple times when Demon 1 was on the roster.
Yeah, I mean that's the question is, with these guys coming in, is that going to be like is that going to solve the carousel of roles that this team had to try to fill with the other two people
Yeah.
on there? I'm not very knowledgeable about either Sato or Okeano, so I'm not really sure if they're going to actually do that, or if it's
I'm
going to
I'm
be.
looking
Mhm.
Sorry, I was going to say I was looking at their games in the EWC against Crew, Furia, and who was the other team they played? NRG. And it looks like they are sticking with Keen as the controller. Okeanos is going to be their initiator slash controller, so kind of their flex role.
Yeah.
And then Sato is their duelist.
Okay.
Which I think Sato as duelist, the only way you can really have it. I mean, dude's insane. Um,
Yeah.
so I think we'll see pretty much the same kind of stuff that we were before, except I think that they are going to stick with only Sato playing Duelist and
Hmm.
Keen only playing Controller, which I think is better. Because do we think so? Because Keen is the team captain, does that make him the IGL? I would assume.
Well, that's the other thing is the IGL role was swapping around. It seemed like
Yeah.
every game last season. So King could
Okay.
be the
So we don't
IGL.
really know who the IGL is.
No, we can't be positive about that. I would have to look at their games that they've been playing for the EWC qualifiers to get a better look at that. But I'm not really sure uh, who has been doing that.
Personally, I would assume it's between Keen or Calm. Um,
Yeah.
just based on the roles they play, and also their experience. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think it remains to be seen. I think that this team can do very good. They're still figuring out what they need to do and figuring out how to work together best.
Hmm.
They lost against Crew in the EWC qualifiers, but I don't think
Does
that
that just
most.
mean Crew is back?
It could mean that Crew is back. I think it more just means that these teams are really trying to get their head on their shoulders and figure out how to communicate with each other, how to go through everything together and get sorted out that way. I don't necessarily think it means that Crew is back because they also were playing with subs. Maybe it just means that their
That's
subs
true.
fit into the team a lot better than Leviathan's did. But
Yeah.
either way, it's yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that no matter who's IGLing, I think that this is probably an upgrade. You got two hungry players coming in who are going to be looking to make a difference off the rip, and I think that that's kind of exactly what you need in this situation. You just need people who are gonna, for better or for worse, just gonna try to send it and really try to
Yeah.
take care of business while hopefully not worrying too much about the results. I mean, the chances of them making it to Paris at this point are pretty slim. So they should just be trying to do as well as they can, set
Yeah.
themselves up well for next year and move forward.
Yeah, like I said, I think playoffs is a pretty safe bet because
Yeah,
Lev was looking good before, so I think adding some fresh blood and adding players as good as Okeanos and Sato, they'll at least get to playoffs. Whether
totally.
they'll do well or go far in playoffs remains to be seen, but I want to say they'll get there.
Yeah, I think they can. I think they could totally do it. Um, so we'll have to wait and see. We could talk more about that kind of once we see all of the roster changes that people have made after Toronto. We'll have plenty
Yeah.
of time to talk about that. Um, I think that we should. There's two other things that I want to touch on, and then maybe we'll wrap up for the evening because
Okay.
we could talk about Toronto a little bit more in depth next week, right before the event happens. Um, First one is more. I want to save the loud roster moves for the end, um,
Okay.
because I think that I don't know what's going on there, and I don't
I
think
don't
that they
think
know what's
anyone
going on.
does.
But to talk about something a little bit more fun, a little bit lighter, Tens is subbing for Cubert through the rest of Split 2 playoffs after Scuba moved over to NRG. So Tens already was a streamer for Sentinels, and Cubert being their academy team, he's able to just slot right in. Um, he From what I've heard, he's talked about how this really isn't like super competitive for him. You
Hmm.
know, they kind of told him like, "Hey, we just want you to step in. We want you to, do your best, but more importantly, like have fun and, don't worry, don't stress too much about it." At the end of
Right.
the day for Cubert Academy, for them, they can't even promote or ascend anyway. So they really don't have to do that well. Most of this is just to try to get as good a practice as they can for the new
Yeah.
kids on the team. But what do you make of 10 subbing in through the rest of Split 2?
I would feel so much pressure if I was either on his team or playing against them because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is tens. Like, just his name alone, I feel like would hold so much power over me.
And
But I
he's
mean,
playing, he not only is it
he's
10s, but he's playing
duelist,
Duelist. Yeah.
which is scary. Oh my gosh. No, I think it's fun. It's fun to watch him play again, even if it's like you said, not competitively necessarily, because he's really again just subbing in so they can get more practice and keep playing. But I think it's good for them to at least have someone as experienced as Tens on the team as well. Because I feel like that is something this roster is lacking is that kind of competitive experience.
Hmm.
Like they're all very talented in their own right. They're all very good. But I mean Tens has won two masters. So or one masters, one champion, whatever. I don't remember what it is. He's won two international trophies.
Yeah, having
Like you
somebody
can always learn something from him.
having somebody like him on the team is just instantly going to elevate the comms at the very least, but
Yes.
like everything just kind of starts moving in the right direction. Like you essentially have a coach who's playing with you on the team. Like you have a dude who's just seen so much Valorant, so much good Valorant, been a part of so
Yeah.
much good Valorant that him being there, like he'll be able to point things out in the middle of the game that maybe some of these other dudes aren't thinking about.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think it's also worth noting Tens had to shove everyone in his backpack in order for them to get nearly as close as they did. Because Cuber ended
did
up
he?
losing both matches.
Oh yeah,
Um, Tens top fragged. I want to. Well, I guess against YFP on their first map, he didn't like massively outfrag anyone.
yeah,
Um, but I feel like his impact was like it was insane. Like just the way he played and all that. Like he was a very good duelist. Like getting space, taking entries, um, just obviously doing what a duelist should do.
right.
Um, so I feel like you said, the comms at the very least are going to get better for Cubert. I'm excited to see what they'll be able to do once they get their new person, their new player for the roster.
Hmm.
I'm excited to see what's going to happen then. Figure out what they can do and hopefully ascend. That would be fun, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, even if they make it to us to the point where they can ascend, they're legally, according to the rules, they're not allowed to because Sentinels can't have two
Right.
different teams in
They'd have to
VCT.
they'd have to like rebrand or find a new org.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody would have to take over for them, and so then it wouldn't be Cuber anymore. But either way, I thought that that was really cool. It's fun for tens. Hopefully, I mean that's the only reason that he should be doing this, because otherwise he would be streaming and making way more money and having getting to choose his own schedule and everything like that. So the only
Yeah.
reason he would do this is just for the love of the game, coming back and just having fun doing that. So it seems like that's what was happening, and hopefully he doesn't have to come back again. Cuber
Yes.
should have another something figured out by the time stage 2 rolls around. But at the end of the day, that's kind of all we can talk about there, since it was as short as it was fun.
Yeah. It was
Um,
fun games to watch.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That's kind of all you want from challengers, anyways. Let's
Yeah.
go ahead and finish off talking about Loud. Because I have a feeling we have some things to talk about here. It's topics like this that I wish that we had people who wanted to call in, because if you as a viewer had some thoughts about this, then we could either all roast Loud together, or you could be the only person who knows what's going on in the Loud facility, and you could tell us what's going on, and we wouldn't be as surprised as we are right now. If you don't know what we're talking about, essentially what's happened here is over the past 2 weeks, Loud has released two of their players. I would argue it's hard to say. They're two of the bigger names on the team, but
Mhm.
they weren't doing the best on the team, is kind of
I mean,
how I
how
would say
can
it.
you and Luke show as your teammate,
Well,
honestly?
exactly. Right. You had Luke Show, and Pencata was really having a return to form last split as well. But you also can't really look that good if you're on an 0-5 team at the end of the day as well. The only
True.
thing that I'll say is they released Tui's, they released Digizin, and in my opinion, before Luke Show came in, Digizin was probably the best player that they had on the team.
Digison was so good. I thought he was playing pretty well.
I don't know if this is recency bias or not though, because in my mind, like Digizin was crazy with an op, and he would hit some massive flicks that he needed to really keep Loud in most of the games that they should have been uh, knocked out by that point. I'm
Yeah.
looking at the VLR article, and they point out that in 4 matches and 9 maps, he racked up 42 first kills and only had 24 first deaths. So he only
Which is an
had
insane stat.
that's a wild stat. So he went plus almost 24. So almost double the amount of first kills as first deaths. My question to you then, because neither of us really know what's going on, my question to you is, what would be the only explanation that says, hey, we should get rid of the second best player on our, or second most consistent player on our team, and Tui's, who, let's not sugarcoat it, was having a pretty bad year so far.
Yeah.
But why?
Sorry. I want to be Tui's biggest defender real quick.
Okay.
Bro's role got changed like a million times in the last 2 years. Um because he was playing smokes, and then Pancata came back, he switched to initiator duelist. And then Sawdock and Les left, and then Tui's then became Sentinel, then was benched, and then was brought back to be initiator.
Right.
Like, Bro has been through it. So I think anyone's performance would suffer in that kind of tumultuous setting.
Yeah. I totally
Um
agree.
so I
I
think he was set up for failure slightly by the team.
Yeah. I actually think that that's probably one of the best takes you can have on this. I think, and this is just from my experience in playing in traditional sports, if you are really not sure what's going on, like
Yeah.
what your future is with the team, what the like if I guess what I'm trying to say is if things are inconsistent in a team, the whole team is going to suffer from that, right? And especially in a game like Valorant that is so consistency based, where if you are doing the same things over and over, if you're practicing the same things over and over, if you're just really drilling in those things, you are going to be one of the best teams.
Yeah.
And for a team to choose to, as you said, bench to or change Tui's role and then bench him and then bring him right back, and just
Change his role after benching him.
right, the roller coaster of it all is just pretty shocking. So
Your mental would be shot at that point.
I don't think that Loud will go 0-5 again in stage 2, but
I'd
I
hope not.
I do not have faith that they're going to. I can't think of who, or I can't think of any like skill of player that they could pick up that would really allow them to make it to the playoffs.
I think if they're going to make it to playoffs, they have to bring in a duelist that is going to be absolutely wild. My bet is they've seen someone from tier 2 that they like.
Mm,
Um and they're like, "Oh, hey, they're doing really well in tier 2. We want to pick them up
right.
and give Digis in the boot." And I think as sucky as that is, it's not a bad choice, especially when you've gone 0-5.
Right.
Um so I understand it. I don't necessarily love it because I do feel like Digizin was very good stats wise.
Mm-hmm.
And again, recency bias potentially, but I think he was good.
Yeah.
Tui's, I understand his stats weren't there, but again, the whole thing we were just talking about, his mental is absolutely shot. So I guess maybe they just saw like, oh hey, there's these two tier 2 players we have our eyes on. We're in talks with them. Let's give these two players the boot, bring these two guys in, and then we'll be set.
Yeah. I
I
think that.
think what's gonna happen, Pancata and Luke Show are gonna have to like put everyone in their backpacks and carry them.
Yep. Yeah. And you can't rely on that every game.
No.
It's not going to be consistent.
I mean, we saw Luke Show in the game against 100 Thieves, like the match
Mm-hmm.
against 100 Thieves. Luke Show was carrying
Oh
that
yeah.
that entire series, and they still lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you cannot rely on a singular player to drag you through unless it's Cryo.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it was basically in that game that if I'm remembering correctly, it was Luke Show against Cryo. That was really the
Yeah, that
only.
was it.
Yeah. So yeah, and I mean, yeah, we got in the chat saying, why are they so mean to this guy? And I don't think anybody even knows. I don't think
I don't know
Tui's.
that Loud knows.
That's what I was gonna say, and that's why I was gonna, kind of move towards the end of it with, like, Loud doesn't seem to know what they're doing. To your point though, I will say, they were 0-5, so they have to make, you have to make a change at that point.
Right.
If you keep everything the same, there's really not, like, I don't know. I guess as an organization, you have to see something change. Otherwise, what are you doing, right? You're not being competitive. Then your fans won't really see it that way. Especially and especially a fan base like Loud, you really kind of have to do
Yeah.
something to try to get them back on board.
And sponsors. You
Right.
start losing, sponsors aren't going to want to be on your team anymore.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think Loud being at the very least in Valorant, the premier Brazilian organization, they've got to perform. They've got to find a return to the form that they were in. During the golden years, 2022, 2023, when they were making grand finals in international events. And I think that,
Cough when they had Osbos cough.
well, yes, they had Aspas, they had Sasi, they had Sadak, they had all these crazy things going on.
Yeah.
They've got to they had to find something to do. So hopefully, I mean, at least they made these changes early on in the break that they have.
Yeah.
The hope is that this does bring the consistency that they need with whoever they are going to bring in. And if they can do that, hopefully there's a chance for them. I don't think it's going to be very far into playoffs based off of, how they've looked historically. Um, but we'll see what happens. The silver lining to all of this, well, depends on how you define silver lining. Tui's, after he got dropped from Loud, got picked up for the EWC qualifying run that Furia was doing. It's Furia at the end of the day, so it's not
Yes.
like you didn't really make it to the big leagues with them, and I think they like bombed out of
Oh,
EWC qualifying too.
he was bottom fragging.
Yeah, so that's not great for Tui's, but the hope
But
is,
oh, sorry, only one match he bottom fragged. The other one he was fine.
well, that helps a little bit. My point with that at least is that Furia, as we talked about as well last week or 2 weeks ago, it completely exploded their roster. All these Brazilian teams doing insane things. The only one who surprisingly looks like they know what they are doing is Leviathan, which that's something
They're
new.
They're not
Oh, they aren't even Brazilian. You're
Brazilian.
right.
Aren't they Argentinian?
You're probably right. They're South American. I guess
We know our geography. I was
we
pretty sure their flag was yeah, they're Argentinian.
they sure are. So Furia. Oh, 2G is also Brazilian, I guess. Oh, and
Yeah.
MIBR. Never mind. MIBR is the one making the best decisions right
It's
now.
like it's in the name.
It's almost in there. Uh, Regardless, hopefully, if even if it is with Furia, hopefully Tui's can come back and play, with a tier 1 team still. I
I think he will.
I feel like he has more to show, and I feel like even if it's on Furia, I feel like that's still better than doing nothing. I don't
Oh,
think going
100%.
down to challengers is the play for him, because I think if he goes down there, I think he's just going to lose his mental. I don't think that he'll be able to actually perform and
No.
hit the goals that he needs to. So,
To Ghost's point in chat, Ghost said if they want this guy to perform well, they gotta give him consistency, don't they? You would think that would be how it is, but apparently Loud doesn't see it like that. And again, I feel like we talked about it as well already. Loud is at the whim of their fans, essentially. The
totally.
Brazilian fans are very passionate, and as the name of the team suggests, very loud about their opinions about what the team is doing. And so, you want to keep the fans happy, you want to keep the sponsors happy, you want to keep your players happy, but at the end of the day, your sponsors and your fans matter more. I feel like because they're what bring in the money.
Yep. Yeah.
So, as much as we would like for that to be true, Ghost, unfortunately, they just don't see it like that.
Yeah. And part of it is like everything you said is totally true, and this is what we find in sports, esports, real sports, traditional sports, whatever sporting world it is, the players are at the whim of the organization, and the organization is looking at more than just results and players. They're rarely ever
Yeah.
looking at the human aspect of it with the players at that.
And I think as well, and this is talking about, like what did you call it? Not real sports. What did you call it?
Traditional sports.
Traditional sports, which technically, okay, Formula One is the sport that I follow the most, and they do a lot of changes like this,
Hmm.
where you have two drivers, and they'll swap out drivers mid-season. They'll demote drivers to the junior team. They'll promote other drivers. Like, granted, a lot of that does have to do with results in their case,
Hmm.
but then you have some team moves that you're just like, why did you do that? Like, it doesn't make sense, but it's because of money, or it's because like the team chemistry or something like that, where it's something that we don't necessarily see as the fans, as the viewers, but they see it and they're like, that's a problem, I know how to fix this, and then give that person the boot.
Yeah.
So I feel like it is something similar to that, I would hope is the case. But
I would agree. I think that's what it comes down to. I don't think that it's I don't think you could look at it any other way. I think that they probably are, feeling the pressure of everybody, and they totally
yeah,
have that feeling. Um
rightfully so. Again, they're 0-5.
yes, exactly. So, we'll have to see what happens. I'm curious to see how many of these other teams are going to make roster moves. It seems like a lot of the top half of Americas are, you know they did make it to the EWC championship, EWC playoffs. What do you even call it? Just EWC. They made it to EWC. That's what I'm trying to say.
Esports World Cup.
Yes. So I think because a lot of them already made it in there, like I don't think we're gonna see too many more roster moves unless everybody's waiting for Toronto to finish, which that's very unlike VCT teams to do. In which case, we might see a few more changes coming up as we finish that off. But I think that'll do it for us tonight. Do you have any other thoughts or topics that you want to bring up before we start finishing up here?
No,
Okay.
I do
Um,
not.
well, guys, thanks so much for stopping by. Um, this has been a little bit of a shorter podcast in the Valorant winter we have in between the end of stage one going into the Masters event. But what I'm hoping will happen, actually, what I know will happen, is once we hit Toronto next weekend and kind of leading up to it, and while we're in it, there will definitely be a lot more content. There will also be a lot more opportunities for you to give us a call in and to talk about, any hot takes that you want to talk about. If you're finding us after the fact, please go and check out our YouTube channel. Check out our Discord, which Blemish did go ahead and put in the Twitch chat, and check out all of our other platforms so you can stay up to date on what's going on. We're slowly but surely growing the community, and we're staying consistent with everything. Even when I'm not able to make it, we'll still have a stream going on, so you can at least stop by and hang out. And yeah, I think that that's gonna do it for us tonight. We'll talk more.
Tier 2 Valorant. That's my
Yes.
shout out for the week. Watch Tier 2.
Make sure you watch Tier 2. It should be exciting. Don't listen to all the people talking about match fixing and things like that. Just enjoy Tier 2 Valorant for what it is, and we'll wait and see how that all plays out.
Yeah.
But regardless, still watch it because some of those guys are going to be in VCT in the coming years, and that's definitely something that you want to keep an eye out for. Shout out to Blemish and Ghost for stopping by and hanging out with us tonight. And we will catch you guys all next week. We'll see you then, and have a great week until we do. Bye-bye.
Bye.